Hi. Before we get started, I have like a legal disclaimer I have to do. So if you're watching this on video recording later, note that we're always updating our features and policies. Please check Google AdWords online for the latest information. Okay, enough of that. My name is Jill. I work at Google Canada. I've been at Google almost 2.5 years now, and I'm part of the sales team. And my job specifically is to help companies that want to grow outside of Canada. So I work with the largest advertisers across Canada and help them find new customers in the US, Europe, Asia, and beyond. So one of the reasons I'm the one standing here talking to you today is because one of the main ways we help them find new customers is, of course, through AdWords. But the other reason I'm the one speaking to you today is because I'm also a sidepreneur. Guess I don't have the risk tolerance that all of you do to go out and start your own business. I work for Google and do a little something on the side. I'm an MBA admissions consultant. I help people apply to business school. And I completely do all my customer acquisition through AdWords. So I can speak to the perspective of, biggest companies in Canada with millions of dollars, and also the perspective of me, who spends like $10 to $20 a day. So as we go throughout, please ask questions. If it's a question that's like very specific to you and your company, then please save it till the end. Whereas if it's a I don't understand, a clarification, then please raise your hand so we can answer it in a moment. Sound good? All right. So today, we're first going to start with talking about setting up for success. Before you even get started with AdWords, there's a little bit of thinking and strategizing you need to do to make sure that once you go start spending money, you're spending it in the right place. And then we're going to go through how Google advertising works. I also like to call that the debunking myths section. And then finally, we're going to walk through an example of actually building a digital campaign. And then at the end of the presentation, I will leave with 5 free things you can do right away to help your business. So let's jump in. How to get ready to start advertising. I meet with startup founders a lot because I love talking to startup founders. You guys have so much passion and energy and great ideas. And sometimes they'll say to me, oh, Google AdWords doesn't work for my business. And I say, okay, tell me more. And what it usually comes down to is that they've started spending a bunch of money in Google AdWords without figuring out what they wanted to achieve. And so an analogy I've come up with is we were all familiar with Starbucks. I'm basic, I like Starbucks. So you can walk into any Starbucks in the world, and if I were to walk into Starbucks and just say, I want a drink, what would happen? The barista would say, oh, what kind of drink do you want? I don't know, I want a drink. I heard you guys sell drinks. Give me a drink. Might not work so well. But if I walk into Starbucks, as I've been known to do, and I say, I want a grande soy no whip pumpkin spice latte, I can go to any Starbucks in the world, say that, pay my $6, and get exactly what I want. $6, I know. I'm basic, I said that. So it's the same with AdWords. If you just go to AdWords and like put random stuff in there and say, okay, give me customers, it's not gonna work. You have to have a strategy and be very specific with telling the system what you want it to do so it can do that for you. Because AdWords is this magic customer acquisition machine. It really is. But machines are only as good as the data we give them. Garbage in, garbage out. So an exercise that is good to go through is think about who is your audience and what is the action you want them to take. And for your business, you might have multiple audiences at different stages in the funnel. We've all seen a marketing funnel before, right? A colleague of mine actually shows this in terms of bubbles, which I think is helpful. So, the biggest possible bubble of people you'd want to reach with awareness is people who will one day make a purchase in your category. So if you sell shoes, people who might one day buy shoes, AKA everybody. Biggest addressable market. And then a subset of that is people who are currently in market in your category. So people who are currently looking to buy shoes. If you spend $1 trying to find these people, chances are it's going to convert quicker than if you try to find these people. And then the smallest bubble is people ready to buy shoes from you. They say, okay, I want to buy Aldo shoes, and I'm going to search for Aldo shoes and buy Aldo shoes. And those are the most profitable people, but they're also the smartest. And so we'll talk about this a few times today, the trade-off between reach and return on investment. And I imagine that for most people in the room, you're going to want to focus on return on investment and making sure you're investing your money in the right place to get the right return for it. So if this is how we're thinking about different stages of the journey, these are different audiences. And when we're talking to each of these different audiences, there's a different action we want them to take. For example, someone who's ready to buy from me, when I'm talking to that audience, I just want to get them to check out or to fill out a contact form as fast as possible. But if I try to put that action in front of these people, nothing will happen. For these people, I want them to maybe just visit my website, and to me that's good enough. So before you get started in AdWords, think about your different audiences and the actions you want them to take. So this is my customer acquisition funnel for my business, MBA Admissions Consulting. So the biggest addressable market of people thinking about applying to business school, I'm not going to bother with them. I can't afford to reach them at all. Ignore them. The next smallest one is people who are applying to a top US MBA program. That's my sweet spot. So I want to reach those people. But who I really want is those people who want to work with a consultant and can afford to work with a consultant and pay me. And for me, the action is a lead. So for these people, I want this audience to take the action of filling out a contact form on my website, and I want these people to take the action of visiting my website. So are there any volunteers in the room who can think for your business, what is the audience you want to reach and the action you want them to take? Yeah?
So like people with traffic tickets?
Yes?
The action we want to take, use our bot.
To use your bot. And is that an action they can take online as a result of going to your website?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Who else wants to try one? Yes, in the back.
So for people interested in sustainable consumption or sustainability, I would say that the first thing we want them to do is actually join our newsletter.
Great.
Sell clothing, but to join our newsletter so that we can then follow up and kind of lead them through the funnel.
Perfect. So that's more of this kind of like awareness or consideration piece. And then later on, you can have them in that sales piece. One more before we keep going. Over here.
So people who, or companies that want to scale their analytics team, those are the ones that that's my audience, and I just want them to come talk to me.
To come talk to you.
Or get in touch with me.
To get in touch with you. That sounds like an action they can take online. Sounds good. And remember, for different businesses, different stages, you have different audiences and different actions. So this is an exercise that you'll want to go through, perhaps with some of your colleagues in your companies, and make sure you have this really well defined before you ever go to AdWords.com. Promise me you will do this before you ever go to AdWords.com, okay? All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, how does Google advertising work? How does Google advertising work? Who has never seen this before? So this is the Google search page, and it's run on an auction. And so what that means is that there are a whole bunch of companies, maybe your companies are among them, behind the scenes that want to put ads in front of people searching for different things. But they can't just put it there by paying the most. There are a few different dynamics going on in the background. Because at Google, we want to focus on the user, as I'm sure all of you do with your companies as well. Focus on the user, money will follow later. So by focusing on the user, we say when the user is searching for something, we want to show them the most relevant search results. And so this is a search I did, cheap co-working space Toronto. So on a search engine results page, there will be some ads at the top, maybe a map, maybe some shopping ads, and then organic results below. Big difference between paid and organic. So today I'm going to be talking about paid, which is people who are paying to put ads here through Google AdWords. Below is what we call the organic results, which are done by Google's algorithm. Me as a salesperson, I have nothing to do with that. It's separation of church and state. So if you have questions about search engine optimization, things like that, unfortunately I can't help you, but you can Google it. There's a lot of resources out there. So today we're going to focus on this, is how to get to the top of the page. And you'll notice also there's some neat little things happening in some of these different ads, right? Like here, there's something called price extensions. WeWork is signaling in their ad how much it costs for their product before you click. Or here, we love working here, a review to entice you to click on their ad. Now, of course, these advertisers all want you to click on their ad because then you go to their business. But for Google, Google only makes money when a user clicks on an ad. So it's also in Google's best interest to show you ads that you are going to want to click on. If your ad shows up 100 times and no one clicks on it, you never pay, which is good for you, but you also don't get any traffic to your website. And being at the top of the page and being in that real estate becomes even more important on mobile. The same search on mobile, you can see there's this ad, which takes up about half the screen, and a bit of the next ad. And then they'd have to scroll down to get to the next one. So top of page real estate becomes even more important on smaller mobile devices. So if this is an auction, don't I just pay the most? Like if I want to buy a blender on eBay, I pay the most and I win the blender. Not how it works in the AdWords auction. And this is because of something called AdRank. And AdRank is the invention of Larry and Sergey that is the foundation of our $600+ billion company. It's a brilliant concept, also a really simple concept. AdRank, which is where you show in the auction, is a function of price and quality. So price here is max CPC. CPC stands for cost per click. So all that means is the maximum amount that you, the advertiser, are willing to pay for someone to click on your ad. So one advertiser might say, I'm willing to pay 20 cents, and another advertiser might say, I'm willing to pay $1. But that's not all that matters, because it's also a function of quality score. And quality score is how we keep the Google search engine focused on the users, by showing them the most relevant ads that they're going to want to click on. So even though one person bids 20 cents and one bids $1, if the person bidding 20 cents actually has a much more relevant product to offer, like maybe that person offers cheap co-working space Toronto, whereas the person bidding $1 offers expensive office space New York, even though they're willing to pay more, it's not as relevant. So this ad would likely show first because it has a higher quality score. And this is great news for everyone in the room here who has smaller budgets, because this democratizes advertising. You don't need to have the biggest budget in order to reach people. Improving your quality score is free. And by having a higher quality score, you can actually pay less than your competitors. So what are the factors of quality score? It's a whole secret sauce algorithm, but the three things that are most important and that you can really focus on are click-through rate, relevancy, and landing page quality. So I'm going to go through those one at a time. Click-through rate is the number of clicks your ad got divided by the number of impressions. So if your ad showed 100 times and got 1 click, that's a 1% click-through rate. So the higher the click-through rate of your ads, the more Google's going to want to show them, because we only get paid when someone clicks on an ad, but it's also a signal that it's more relevant to what people are looking for. So that is the most important thing, is a high click-through rate. And ways to increase your click-through rate is to test a lot of different ad copy. When you're launching a campaign, don't just put one ad and be done. Come up with 10 different ad ideas, come up with 20, and let the system rotate and optimize and figure out what works best. Then relevancy. So if I search cheap co-working space Toronto, and that matches against a keyword you're bidding on, cheap co-working space Toronto, and your ad says cheap co-working space Toronto, and your website says cheap co-working space Toronto, that's a very relevant experience, and that's going to increase your quality score. Whereas if I'm searching cheap co-working space Toronto, and your keyword is co-working space Toronto, that's still relevant, it's not as relevant. And so there's a balance here. Obviously, you can't have every single keyword that everyone might possibly search for ever in your account. But by having relevancy and making sure you don't just have like one huge jumble of keywords, but if you have different products or different services, that you segment them out so that the ads can relate to what people are searching for. And so you don't just point everyone to your homepage. Maybe there's a specific part of your website or app that you want to point them to based on what they've been searching for. An example from my business, I bid against keywords that have to do with mock MBA interviews. So if someone is searching for that, I don't put them to my homepage, I put them to my page that has information about mock MBA interviews. And I have another set of keywords all about MBA essay editing. So if they do that, they go to that page. Whereas if they're just searching MBA admissions consultant, I send them to the homepage. I want to make it fast and easy for them and bring them to the most relevant part of my page, removing any potential friction to conversion. And then the third piece here is landing page quality. So this has to do with things like, is your website going to render well on a mobile device? If not, we're not going to want to show it to someone who's searching on a mobile phone. Or is your content original, or have you just copy and pasted a bunch of content from Wikipedia and put it on your site? That's not going to be very valuable for the user. But the most important one to focus on is click-through rate and relevancy. And again, by doing so, you'll pay less for the same clicks out there. Any questions about AdRank? Yes?
If we were to use, like, just for Google AdWords, we created landing pages that were not really regular parts of our site. So if we use something like Sumo or something to create a landing page, is that a good practice for AdWords?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I work with advertisers who do that. They'll create specific landing pages based on the campaigns people are coming from.
To be able to make sure that you're
to be able to tailor it. And there's also an option called dynamic keyword insertion. You can just Google dynamic keyword insertion to learn more. But so whatever the user searched can actually like show up in your ad dynamically, and then you can have some code on your website so that'll show up on your website dynamically. So a use case would be MBA admissions consulting is also called MBA application consulting. So I could put both of those in the same campaign and then put some code in so that whatever the user typed, that's what shows up in the ad, and then that's what'll show up on the landing page when they click through.
And you're also paying bidding for both of those two keywords?
And I bid for both of those keywords, yeah. Yeah, that's probably getting to like intermediate to advanced, not beginner AdWords, but that is possible, yeah. Other questions before we move on? All right, great. So now we're going to talk about building a digital campaign in AdWords. Can I actually show of hands, has anyone used AdWords before? Very few. And keep your hands raised, and raise your hand if someone else in your company uses AdWords but you don't. No? Okay, cool. Where can search ads show? On the search engine results page, obviously, but there's a few other places they can show as well. One is called search partners. So these are websites that use Google to crawl their own websites and power their own site search. So you can see here I've searched for all-inclusive vacations on the New York Times website, but there's some ads served there as well. And on other Google properties, for example, I searched for pizza, and Pizza Hut has an ad that shows up in Maps because they have a location enabled there. So when you run a search campaign, you can say, I just want to show on Google search, or I want to also include search partners, but you can't pick them ad hoc. It's all or nothing. Then there are display ads, also called banner ads, which you might see around the internet when you're on your phone. In the example here, kind of meta, Google AdWords is advertising using Google AdWords, and a Fidelity advertisement there. And then video ads, which primarily show on YouTube. So we're going to walk through Bob's Bicycle Shop, a fictional bike shop in Toronto, and see how he can use a combination of search and display advertising to build a campaign to power his business and find new customers. So Bob has a bicycle shop in Toronto. And right now he does some search advertising on AdWords. So bringing our funnel back, users search differently when there are different places in the funnel. Someone who's in that bigger awareness bucket might just search bicycles. But like, what does that mean if they're just searching bicycles? Do they want to buy a bicycle? Are they like an athlete? Do they want a bicycle for a child? Do they just want a picture of a bicycle? Do they want a cake in the shape of a bicycle? We don't really know. So that's interesting, but like maybe you come back to that later. And then there's best commuter bike. So that suggests this person is a bit further down. They're doing some research. They want to find out what kind of bike they should purchase. So they're in this kind of consideration phase, and Bob might want to bid on them to show that he has the best commuter bike they can buy. And then down here, bike repair shop near me. If there's someone within 1 mile of Bob's bicycle shop searching for bike repair shop near me, that person is ready to make a purchase right now. So these are all potentially good keywords for Bob, but they signal that people are at different places in the funnel, and so they'll have different values for Bob's business. So that's what search can look like. But what about those who aren't actively searching, those who are on YouTube or on their phones or browsing content pages? That's where display advertising can come into play, because there might be people up here who aren't actively searching for best commuter bike right now, but they are, interested in it, or might be a customer one day. And so the way I like to think about it is with search ads, and why they're so brilliant, is the user is raising their hand and say, here's what I want. I'm telling you what I want because I'm typing it into the search box. With display advertising, you, the advertiser, are reaching out to the user and saying, here's what I think you want. Here's what I'm offering. Do you want what I have to offer? And because of that, search advertising is usually more efficient, like you'll have a higher click-through rate because someone's telling you exactly what they want, but it can also get expensive. And so having a balance of these two tactics in your business and having them work together can help you be most effective in reaching your customers. So Bob decided to segment his customers like we did into 3 audiences: weekday commuters, weekend riders, and then racing enthusiasts, who would likely be his most profitable demographic. So we're going to walk through what creating a campaign for weekday commuters might look like. So there's basic targeting options in AdWords, like where's the user located, what kind of device are they on, time of day, And then we get into a lot more options. On search ads, you pretty much just put keywords in your account. And then if people search for those keywords and there's a match and you're in the auction, you show. But in display, there are tons more options. You can say, I want to show my ads on websites related to bicycles. I want to show my ads to people who are in market right now to buy a bicycle. I want to show my ad to people of a certain age or gender. I want to show my ads to people who visited my website before. I want to show my ads to people who are similar to people who visited my website before. It opens up a lot more opportunity. And what it all comes down to is there's two ways to advertise. And by the way, this isn't unique to AdWords. This is just in general. You can target a context, which I think of as a piece of real estate. Regardless of who's walking by this piece of real estate, I want to show them my message. It's like a billboard in Dundas Square. I think that's actually Google Pixel had a billboard there. So the Pixel team decided whoever walks by here, we want them to see the Pixel phone. The online equivalent of that might be you can do a run-of-network display campaign, or auto companies. I'm sure you've all seen ads from auto companies on YouTube. They say, like, I don't care who it is. I want everyone to know that when they buy a car, they want to buy it with Honda. I want that piece of real estate. The other kind of advertising, which is pretty unique to digital channels, is audience. And what audience says is, I don't care where you are. I want you, not you the individual because of privacy, but you the kind of person who we know through various signals has been to my website before, is currently shopping for baby products, is similar to someone who's been to my website before, is of a certain age or gender. So it's saying, you, I don't care if you're on the New York Times or watching YouTube or on Google search, regardless of where you are, there are signals that have told me that you might be a good customer for me, so I want to get a message in front of you. Any questions about the difference between context versus audience tactics? And what's exciting recently about this is search advertising was typically a context type of advertising. I want to advertise to people searching for certain keywords. I want to have the real estate above those keywords. But now you can actually use audiences in search as well. So remember earlier we saw the keyword bicycle, and we said, well, bicycles is probably like too broad. What Bob could do is say, okay, I want to show an ad to someone searching bicycle only if they visited my website in the last 30 days. So if someone's been to my website in the last 30 days and they're searching bicycle, I want to show them an ad to bring them back. Whereas if it's anyone else, I don't. And so that's combining context and audience together. And that gets really, really powerful. And I do this for my business as well. There are certain keywords like MBA. I can't afford to bid on the keyword MBA, but if someone's been to my website before and they didn't fill out my contact form, I already paid to bring them to my website once. I want to pay to try to bring them back again to convert if they're going back and searching for something related. So that's called remarketing lists for search ads. You can also say, okay, these are my keywords and they're whatever they are, but if someone's been to my website before, I'm willing to pay double for them. So that's saying same keywords, it's not this separate set of keywords, but I'll pay more for those people if they've been to my website before, or if they're in market for something, or if they're a certain age or a certain gender. So lots of ways to combine these two together. And so this brings two things. One, it brings excitement of all the amazing things we can do, and then it also kind of brings terror because how the heck are we supposed to manage all of these things? And that's why you can let machine learning algorithms do it for you. Most people in this room are just getting started with AdWords. So again, this is like an intermediate advanced sneak peek for you. But once you have enough data in your account, enough conversion data, you can actually hand the reins over to our machine learning algorithms and say, hey, I'm willing to pay a $10 CPA, go for it. And then you don't have to decide any of this stuff. The system figures it out for you. Yes?
When I had talked to Google previously, there seemed to be this distinction between Google and Facebook, which was that with Google search especially, and that was the push I got, people are literally searching for you, so it's a more qualified lead. Versus, Facebook, you're rooted in, audience targeting mostly. But it seems like the narrative in this slide has moved the Google story also towards this remarketing and audience targeting thing. Is that a recent type of narrative shift, or is it just like because that's intermediate and these workshops are more basic?
Yeah, it could be a whole variety of things. I mean, it took me, I would say, 9 months of working at Google in AdWords every day to become an AdWords expert. So I imagine if you're attending an introductory workshop, they can't cover everything. But Facebook is another kind of display advertising. Of course, Google's not the only search engine out there. But display advertising can work on context or audience. So with Facebook advertising, you would be saying, my context is Facebook or Instagram, and they have audience signals. And then you can do the same thing on Google as well and other websites. But Facebook doesn't have a search product. And then, LinkedIn, Twitter, these are all other examples of display, and they likely will have a combination of these signals for you to use as well. Yeah. But what is a bit newer probably is that you can bring audience signals into search as well, which is really powerful. Yeah. Yes?
I'm a bit curious about the machine learning. Is there a threshold, like within a given year, a given month of traffic or purchase?
Yes, you need about 100 conversions in a month in order for it to work. And I don't get 100, for me a conversion is a form fill on my website. I don't get 100 of those a month. So what I've done so that I can use auto bidding, which is what it's called, is set up micro conversions. So if someone visits the contact form page, for AdWords purposes, I count that as a conversion so that I have enough conversion volume to use automated bidding. So there are different micro conversions you can set. You can set them up in AdWords or in analytics. For example, another micro conversion I've set is if someone visits 3 different pages of my website in a session, I count that as a micro conversion. And I've assigned a value, tell me if I'm getting too complicated. I assigned a value to that of like 10 cents. I'm like, if someone visits 3 different pages of my website, it's worth 10 cents to me. If they visit my contact form, that's worth $1. And if they fill out the contact form, they convert, that's worth $10. And that data gets fed back to AdWords, and I use an automated bidding strategy called Target ROAS, Target Return on Ad Spend. So it tries to get me the maximum return on my ad spend. And so because I've set different values for those actions, it'll try to find me those people. But of course, that $10 form fill is the most expensive one. But these things take time. Again, I'm sharing this with you now to get you excited. I would not recommend you go to your desk and start looking up Target ROAS bidding strategies right now. But once you have built up your AdWords campaigns and build up traffic, these are the kind of things you can do so that instead of having someone whose job it is to manage AdWords, you can have someone who checks on AdWords for 15 minutes once a day, and that's it.
One more, sorry.
Yeah, no,
the
please.
Tag Manager, do you use Tag Manager for?
I know what it is, but I don't know much detail about it. I'm sorry.
I know that you can manage your pixels and your tracking pixels and different layers of it and micro conversion stuff and value of conversion.
Beyond my pay grade, unfortunately, but I'm sure there's lots of resources online to help you with that. All right, so we're going to go back to Bob. So we talked about some context and audience targeting that Bob could do. Messaging. This is really important. As I mentioned, I work with the largest advertisers, and they spend so little time figuring out what they're actually going to say. They want to talk about bids and budgets and strategies and whatever, and almost no one focuses on this. And so again, for startups, I would say this is something you can use to your advantage. Spend time developing great creative and testing a lot of different creative for your audiences. So for weekday commuters, he's offering 20% off commuting rain jackets and shop now, so they can buy something online. For weekend riders, who are probably not as valuable, 10% off, come take a look. And then for racing enthusiasts, carbon fiber road frames. I don't know what a carbon fiber road frame is, which tells you I'm not in his audience and I probably wouldn't be served that ad, but that sounds expensive. So tailoring different things to different audience members so that you're making sure that you're driving them towards the action that makes sense for where they are in the customer journey. And then you put it all together. So this is just an example of what a weekday commuter campaign could look like. Demo, ages 25 to 54. People interested in bikes and accessories, and health and fitness, and outdoor gear. Maybe people interested in finance and accounting if they're commuting to downtown and they work on Bay Street. Some keywords that might be useful to put into a search campaign. Some websites, bicycle forums, outdoor recreation, things he wants to target. When you start an AdWords campaign, I don't want to say throw everything against the wall and see what sticks, but I recommend trying a few tactics, giving them enough budget and time, like a week or two, depending what your budget is, to run, then see what works and redirect your budget. I'll give you an example. One client I work with, they sell luxury apparel product, and so they tested their campaign against luxury shoppers and against people in market for outerwear. And even though what they were selling was outerwear, they actually performed better when they targeted luxury shoppers because their product was so expensive. But they wouldn't have known that if they just said, we sell outerwear, let's advertise to people in market for outerwear. So they tested both at first, saw that this one performed better, then diverted the rest of their investment there and went with it. So I encourage you to do the same. And if you want to get some ideas, if you use Google Analytics, which is totally free, on the audience section there, it can tell you what audiences visitors to your website are part of. So what visitors to your website tend to be in market for, what are they currently shopping for, and what affinity audiences are they part of, like luxury shoppers or outdoor enthusiasts. All right. So search marketing can work across the funnel, as we saw, but usually the way people use it is to drive purchase, consideration of purchase. It's a lower funnel tactic. Display works to build your sales funnel. And together, you're able to drive people through to convert on your business. Because for someone like, let's say, Lululemon, if I go to Google and I search Lululemon yoga pants, guess what? I probably want to buy Lululemon yoga pants. So that would be a keyword, down here for them. But no one wakes up out of nowhere and says, I think I'm going to search for Lululemon yoga pants today. The reason I search for that is because sometime in the past, they have made me aware of their brand. I came in here with Lululemon probably like 10 years ago, and over time, they've pushed me down that funnel, so now I search straight for them. So it's always cheapest to advertise against Lululemon yoga pants for Lululemon, because no one else is going to be as relevant or high quality result as they are for that, obviously. But you can't, if you just advertise against that and you don't work on growing your funnel, then you're just going to keep talking to the same small group of people again and again, and you're not going to grow your business. And so that's why there's this balance between reach, display tactics, getting out in front of as many people as possible, and ROI, capturing those people who are ready to convert for your business. And when you leave the session, I have a handy printout here today that runs through every possible way you can target people using AdWords across search, shopping, display, Gmail, YouTube, and DoubleClick. I don't think anyone in the room uses DoubleClick. And it goes from reach all the way down to ROI. So please take one of these on your way out. I have one of these on my desk. I still refer to it all the time. All right, so today we talked about how before you spend a penny in AdWords, you need to set yourself up for success. Define who is your audience, what is the action you want them to take. You probably have multiple audiences, so make sure you do this for all of them. And maybe you only want to advertise to one audience to get started with as you're getting your feet wet. We talked about how Google advertising works, how the auction works, and how ad rank is a function of what you're willing to pay, but also quality score. So focus on improving relevancy so that you pay less for the same clicks. And then finally, we went through the steps of building a digital campaign, understanding where consumers are at different points in the funnel and how you can reach them with different targeting tactics and different messaging to bring them in to your business. And of course, multiple tactics work together to drive your overall marketing goals, so set your KPIs accordingly. Your search campaign will probably have a very different cost per acquisition than your display campaign. And so rather than saying, cut the display campaign, it's not working for me, think about how they work together and view your marketing strategy holistically, because that'll drive the most growth for your business. As I promised, I would end this presentation with 5 free things you can do right now. So number 1, define 2 to 3 customer segments you want to target online and go through this audience and action exercise. Number 2 is link your Google Analytics account to your AdWords account. It's free to launch an AdWords account. It's free to launch a Google Analytics account. If you want to advertise on AdWords, of course, you need to start spending money to do that, but you can link them and start gleaning insight about your website visitors using Google Analytics for free. Next is set up conversion tracking. What counts as a conversion for your business? Is it a phone call? Is it a form fill? Is it someone checking out online? And if you want to set those micro conversions I talked about, what might a micro conversion look like? What are some signals from people's behavior on your website that signals that there's someone who's probably likely to convert, and so you want your campaigns to optimize towards that? You can set up conversion tracking through AdWords or through analytics, up to you. Next, I would say set up remarketing lists. You can do this, again, through AdWords or analytics. And segment your audience in a way that's meaningful to you. So I mentioned that I have a few different products. So I have different lists I've created for each of those so that I can go back to them with different messaging. And then I also have a list of all website visitors in the last 7 days, 7 to 14, and 14 to 30 days. Because if someone came to my website in the last 7 days, and didn't fill out my form and I want to put a message in front of them again, they're more likely to do it than someone who visited maybe 90 days ago. So again, setting up audience lists is totally free, and when you bring them into AdWords, you can start to just see data about them before you even start bidding on them differently. And then lastly, get ad ideas by Googling your products and services. Google your competitors' products and services. And take note, actually look at the ads and read them and say like, what can I learn from that? What do I like about that? What do I not like about that? And use this to develop your own creative. Take the time to develop really good ads, because while it's not as fun, I would say, as talking about different targeting and strategy and auto bidding and ROAS, it's the thing that actually goes up in front of the user. And so if you focus on the user and the experience they get and making that as best as possible, that's how you're going to drive new customers for your business. Yes?
How do you find people who already visit your website and target it? Is this a service that Google provided, or do you have to use other third-party services to retarget those people?
Yes, Google offers it for free. There are other companies that offer it as well. And so if you want to advertise to people who visited your website before, you can set it up through Google Analytics by creating an audience list, or you can also set it up through AdWords, either way. But what happens is once you set that up, that list will just populate. And then once it has enough people on it, I believe it needs to have at least 1,000 people to target on display, but don't quote me on it. You can Google it for the exact number. Then you'll be able to start advertising to that list. Yeah, it's free. I mean, you have to pay for the advertising, but getting the list is free. Yes?
Sorry for all the questions, but are you saying that the AdWords tracking pixel goes through the analytics code?
There's like one way to do things through analytics, and there's another way to do things through AdWords. So you can do one, you can do the other, you can do both. There are pros and cons of each, which again, too detailed for today, but either one works.
So if you already have the analytics code in your site, it's already going to be able to track.
Yes, exactly. You can track conversions, you can set up remarketing lists, all of that if you already have analytics. The last thing I will leave you with is this only launched about a month ago, startup.google.com. Google being a large global company, we had all these different piecemeal resources all over the place. We have Go North in Canada, all different things. So Google launched this website to be a one-stop shop for startups for anything Google related you might need. That is a very good place to go. So I encourage you to check it out, not just about AdWords, but cloud and all kinds of different products. I'm Jill at google.com. I'm going to hang around for a little bit afterwards if people have questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for your attention and engagement today.